Welcome to the MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show. I am your host, Trellis Williams, and we are back for 2026. We missed you for the last, I think it's 3 weeks since our last show. We skipped Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, but we are back with the MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button to the TSJW Network YouTube channel. This is a good time to go ahead and hit that subscribe button because we got a lot going on in terms of coverage for the MSAHA. In a month, we're going to be seeing championship ball games. I do believe February 7th will be the date of the championship games here in the MSAHA, and that will be in a month. So we will see that. We're not very far off, folks. And listen, we got a lot to talk about here today, and we're going to tell you about it. A lot of games to talk about. You know, since we skipped Christmas Eve, we had some games before that, and we've had some games since 2026 has begun as well. So let's go ahead and get started with this past week. Look, let's go back to December 18th, all right? So we had Scott County and Meridian, and on the girls' side, we see a 31-20 win for the Meridian Flyers over the Scott County Flames. This was a battle of two winless teams in conference, okay? And Meridian, you know, they were the 3 seed last year. They were a very good team. They lost 7 seniors from last year's team, so they're kind of in the position where they're rebuilding. Scott County didn't even compete in 18U last year. They are here now, and you see a 31-20 score. Meridian getting the win over Scott County there in Hickory, and the Flyers get the win by 11. Then we see on the boys' side, we see Meridian getting the win easily, 87-25 in a blowout win over Scott County. Yeah, the Flames just kind of struggling this year to get any wins because, listen, as far as the league is concerned, this is one of the strongest leagues in terms of depth that we have ever seen in the history of the conference. And Scott County just found themselves behind the 8 ball. They take a 62-point loss to Meridian there. We see on the same day, December 18th, we see Macomb and PCA take each other on. Obviously, PCA does not have a girls program, so we're seeing only boys here. You know, PCA fighting for the number 1 seed at this moment in time. Macomb, you know, they've had 2 conference wins, one over Scott County and then one over Laurel. And so now we see a win for PCA. 60-32. 28-point win down in Lacombe. Really hard to beat the PCA Paladins down in Lacombe, and they show that once again with a 28-point victory over the Macomb Gators there in Lacombe. Then we also see the same day, December 18th, we see Hattiesburg and Jackson take each other on. Now listen, up to this point, Hattiesburg had not played the more challenging competition in the league. They had not played a lot of the tougher teams in the league up to this point. They had played Laurel twice, in which they had 2 impressive wins. They had beaten Meridian twice as well, which is very impressive. But this is where they ran into a test, going on the road to take on the Jackson Victors, and they win in overtime, 71-69, a thrilling finish where they had a game winner from Tafari Edwards to win the ball game. In Byram, Hattiesburg gets that win. This put them up top at number 1 at that moment in time. Hattiesburg Forerunners getting the win 71-69 over the Jackson Victors. The thing about the Victors, we're going to talk about this later on, they are a heavy contender here in the league. Even though they're kind of building up their losses right now, and we'll talk about this as well as we move through the show. You know, they're a very competitive team. They're very deep. They're probably the deepest team our league has. Hattiesburg gets the win by 2 in overtime. Then the following day, the Forerunners back at it again, this time taking on the Muddy River Counselors. Let's start off with a little girls action. So, listen, this is a battle between the 2 and the 3 spots, okay? So, Hattiesburg's already lost to Laurel 1 time. The Counselors lost to Laurel twice. So, Laurel's in position where they're going to be the number 1 seed. Okay, so now we see Muddy River and Hattiesburg take each other on the second time. The first time the 2 teams played, the Counselors won comfortably, but about by 20 points. But this time the Counselors really take it to Hattiesburg on the road, 46-19. We're starting to kind of see this Counselors girls team turn a corner because, you know, they've played well from the beginning. They've definitely improved from last year, best Counselors girls team ever, for sure. But, you know, they're starting to turn a corner here where they're playing some better basketball. They took that 50-point loss to Laurel, which was definitely discouraging. Obviously, a big goal for them is to be able to top Laurel. They come back the next time, and they lose again, but they lose by 13 the second time. So you're talking about a way more competitive ball game, obviously, and that was on the road. And now able to beat Hattiesburg by nearly 30 points on the road, 46-19, a big win for the Muddy River Counselors girls. Now on the boys' side, we see Hattiesburg getting the win over the Muddy River Counselors 67-62 down in Hattiesburg. Now, this is a very interesting game. The Counselors led the majority of the ball game. Hattiesburg took it over right at the end. Big shots from both Keller Russell and Seth Hollingsworth to seal the victory for the Forerunners. It was their first time beating the Counselors since February 1st of 2023. So a big moment for the Forerunners at home, getting the win over the Muddy River Counselors. That gave the Counselors their third conference loss, which pretty much put the Counselors in the position where it's nearly impossible for them to get that number one seed, which they've had the last two seasons. And so the focus for them is to try to win this championship. Now, we do see that this conference is pretty wide open because the Counselors have beaten every team in the league. So there's no team in the league that the Counselors have not beaten. They have 3 conference losses, one to the Jackson Victors, whom they beat the following week, one to PCA, who they beat earlier in the season, and then to Hattiesburg, who they beat earlier in the season as well. So the Counselors very much a heavy contender, still one of the favorites to win the league. You have to say they're the defending 2-time champions, and they've also beaten everybody in the league. But now Hattiesburg, after this game, really solidifies themselves as a favorite to win, or one of the favorites to win. This gave them a 9-1 conference record. Now, they had not played PCA at all as of yet, but they did beat the Counselors, and they beat the Victors in their first matchup with them, and had beaten Meridian twice and Laurel twice, and Macomb twice for that matter. So they have really done well. So they were 9-1 after this ball game. The following day, we see on the Saturday, Laurel hosting PCA. Now, this is a big story in the league. I'm trying to get Coach Davey Fenton of the Laurel Nighthawks to join us on the show, and just had some scheduling conflicts, and Lord willing, we'll be able to get him on in the coming weeks. But he's done a great job heading up that Laurel team, and they have been improving over the course of the season. They started off kind of tough, lost a lot of players from last year, lost 4 of their 5 starters this year. So they start off, a little bit tough. But as time has gone on, they've been doing better and better. And we see it here in this ball game. PCA wins, but only by 12 points. I mean, it's 57-45, and PCA right now could be the odds-on favorite to win the conference, possibly. I mean, we'll have to see. But they only have 1 conference loss at the moment. We'll talk a little bit more about PCA later on. But Laurel gives them a good challenge, a 12-point game. The thing about Laurel is that they're so big. And what we've seen from Brock Anderson this year has been highly impressive, as he is taking on ball handling duties, scoring duties, and then he's also a big fella and strong player as well. A senior for this Laurel Nighthawks team. He has led the way very well. And again, Coach Davey Fenton's done a great job leading this program. He used to coach the Laurel Nighthawks back in the day. He actually stopped coaching in 2019. His last game coaching the Laurel Nighthawks was actually against me when I was playing on the Victors. And, one thing about our teams when I was on the Victors is that we won every conference game every year. Listen, we go into this championship game against Laurel. We had beaten them by 30 just a couple of weeks before. But Coach Fenton had him a great game plan for that one. We went to overtime, folks. And Laurel had the possession right there with 5 seconds left, and they almost knocked us off in the championship ball game. And it came down to the finish. But all that being said, this guy can really coach. He knows basketball. He knows how to prepare a team to win. He knows how to develop a team over the course of the season. And I think we're seeing that here with this Laurel Nighthawks team. We hope to have Coach Fenton on in just a little bit. Well, not today, but in the coming weeks. Then we see at the dawn of 2026, we see the Jackson Victors take on the PCA Paladins. These two teams had taken each other on earlier in the season. This is one of the early games in October. I think it was PCA's opening game on the road. A game in which PCA won. They pulled away and won by 20-something. And this time they win by 26, 55-29. Not a lot of scoring going on. Kind of out of the norm for PCA to score in the 50s, I guess. But, I mean, listen, the Victors can defend and they're deep, but the Victors really struggled to score. They finished with 29 points, and PCA wins 55-29 in Lacombe. Tough to beat PCA in Lacombe, and they show it again there on this past Saturday. PCA wins 55-29. After that, we see on Monday, January 5th, we see the Muddy River Counselors taking on the Macomb Gators. Starting off on the girls' side, again, we're talking about this Counselors girls team coming back for 2026. Macomb has been improving. And listen, Coach Bobby Baggett, he was the boys' coach last year for Macomb. Now he's coaching the girls' side. He's done a great job. He's been improving that program. They already have 2 conference wins this year. They had never won a conference game until this season. They've beaten Meridian and Scott County. And we see this game with the Muddy River Counselors. The Counselors win 56-25. So you look at that final score and you think, okay, you know what, the Counselors win by 31, kind of what you expect based on how the season's been going. The Counselors have been looking good. And they also they're just more developed at this moment in time. But the thing about Macomb, though, this game was close early, all right? It was close right around the second quarter, and the Counselors were able to pull away, had a big third quarter, explosive third quarter, got into playing basketball the way that they want to. But I'll tell you this about Macomb, full-on hustle, full-on hard work from them. And also, they can score the basketball better than they have in the past. They constantly are improving. You could tell that you could tell that these girls have been working hard on their game. Okay, so I did see in the chat, I want to go ahead and correct this now. So it's JP Darter that had the game winner against the Victors. So let me just go ahead and correct this now while I'm seeing the chat. I do think Tafari Edwards had the game tying shot, though. I know that he hit a big shot there in the clutch there. So I did want to make that correction there. But back to the subject at hand, the Counselors in Macomb. A win for the Counselors by 31 points over the Macomb Lady Gators there in Summit. Then we see on the boys' side, we see the Muddy River Counselors boys back at it again, and they get the win 71-55 over the Macomb Gators. Listen, here's the thing. Counselors started off very well, and this is something that we're going to have to see from the Counselors. Okay, they're not a very deep team. And so they find themselves in the position where if they take big deficits, it's hard to come back in the game. 2 of their 3 conference losses, they took big deficits, and when they tried to come back, it just wasn't enough to win the game. We saw that against the Victors. They go down by 19. See that against PCA, they go down by 27. And so you can't take these kind of deficits if you're the Counselors. But then we do see after that, we see the Hattiesburg game, which the Counselors did not take a big deficit, but they didn't take a big lead either. It was just a close game the entire ball game, and Hattiesburg won in the end. This game was different. The Counselors pounced on Macomb. They took an 18-6 lead early. They ended up going up by as many as 18 points. They end up winning by 16 points, 71-55. You see all over the court the Counselors playing well. So Michael Williams had a good ball game. He didn't have his greatest shooting performance, but finishing with 28 points, 23 rebounds, and 11 assists, a monster game for him. We see from Isaac Viverka finishing off with 13 points. You see Hilton Tompkins putting in 11. You see Mark Johnson, Mark Dillon putting in 9 apiece. You just see a big game from the Counselors overall. And they look good. So that's something to look at there as the Counselors beat Macomb. But I'll tell you this on Macomb's side. Sean Davis was a menace in that ball game. Finished with 26 points for the Gators. And he has been very good. And sometimes, when you find yourself with a team, and, Macomb, they lost a lot of guys from last year. And so they really had to regroup. And I think those coaches are doing a very good job at Macomb. Keeping that team nice and competitive. They were very competitive on Monday night as well. But, Sean has had to step up big. And finishing with 26 points in a game like that, he's a quick player. He's tall. He's athletic as well. And so Davis having a big game there, I thought that should definitely be noted. So then we saw last night, January 6th, we see Meridian taking on Laurel. Now, the girls' game there was something else. 66-5, Laurel beating Meridian. Wow. We've talked about this. Meridian is in a rebuilding stage, And Laurel is, let's just say Laurel's not in a rebuilding stage. Laurel is going for championships. They are gunning hard, okay? And so we see the Lady Nighthawks win by 61 points. And the thing is, just defensively, obviously able to really shut Meridian down. And a 66-5 win over Meridian for Laurel. Not surprised that they won, but, that score is pretty eye-popping there. Then we see on the boys' side, Laurel getting a big win over Meridian, 62-51. Now, we have talked about this, okay? They only had 2 conference wins heading into this ball game. Both of them were against Scott County. And so we kind of already see, Scott County's just, kind of behind the 8 ball in the league this year. So Laurel's only 2 conference wins being over them, they're looking for a big marquee conference win. And, they played PCA. They really nearly could have beaten PCA, which would have been a crazy way to get your first conference win against one of the best teams in the league. But what we do see, they do not beat PCA, but they do top Meridian at home 62-51. What I heard is that Meridian got in some big-time foul trouble. Cooper Franklin is back. And we're going to talk about this upcoming week. They're going to play the Mud River Counselors again. And so we'll see how that game goes, and we're excited about that one. That'll be live, Laurel William, right here on the TSJW Network Counselors TV. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But Laurel, how about that? I know that you got to be happy if you're the Nighthawks. But this does drop Macomb down below Laurel in the standings. But I will say they have not played the second time as of yet. That game's going to be a game to look at. It's going to be big on the seeding implications because Macomb's got 2 conference wins, one of them over Laurel, one of them over Scott County. They haven't played Scott County the second time. And then Laurel and Macomb have not matched up as of yet. So we'll see what happens there as far as that is concerned. But how about that? A huge win for Laurel, winning by 11 over the Meridian Flyers. Then we see, again last night, this was the game of the week, and we see PCA taking on Hattiesburg. Obviously, PCA only has boys, and so we see a boys matchup here, and this was basically the game for the number 1 seed. Now, these 2 teams are going to play again in Lacombe, so things can still change at this moment. But this was a huge game going into it. Whoever took the win was in the lead, in the driver's seat, because both of them came in with 1 conference loss apiece. Hattiesburg came in 9-1 in conference. PCA came in 8-1 in conference after beating Jackson, and PCA wins 59-52. An intense ball game, a close ball game. From all that I've heard, it was very close the whole time, and the Paladins pull it out on the road. Huge win for PCA. This puts them in the position where they're most likely going to get the number 1 seed, because now Hattiesburg's going to have to beat PCA by more than 7 points on the road, and that's just tough. I mean, we've talked about this. PCA's probably got the biggest home court advantage in the whole league. It's really hard to beat PCA on the road, and then we see the discrepancies in the scores too. They go on the road, and even if they win the game, it's a good bit closer than it was at home for them, and that's credit to them. It's really what it is, that they just hit their shots all the time over there. And they hit shots on the road too, but at home, it just seems like nothing misses, folks, especially if you're on that other side watching it. But PCA does win on the road against Hattiesburg. Huge win for the Paladins, and they win 59-52. I want to go ahead and take a break before we get into next week's games to remind you to go and hit the subscribe button to the TSJW Network YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button right now. We've got a lot of MSAHA coverage that's coming up. We're going to heat up our coverage as we are really coming to the final weeks of the season. It's kind of sad to say because it just feels like it flies by so quickly, but we still have a lot more basketball to be played. And listen, as far as the conference is concerned, we're going to be looking at the standings in just a second. And as a matter of fact, let's go ahead and look at the standings right now. But when we're looking at these standings, there's more to be done in order to get these standings right. So we'll have to see. Let's look at the girls' side first. I think the girls' side is pretty much close to being set in stone here. We see Laurel, number 1. And they have clinched it. There's no way that they will fall from number 1 because the worst record they could be is 8-2. I think they have a game with Macomb and another game with Hattiesburg up next. I don't think they're going to be 8-2, but the worst they could be is 8-2. The best Muddy River can be is 8-2, and then Laurel's got the tiebreaker. So Laurel is the number 1 seed in the tournament, and that is confirmed. We see Muddy River at number 2. Technically, the counselors could fall below Hattiesburg, but it's very unlikely if the counselors are able to take care of business against Meridian and Scott County, which is their final 2 games. They should finish 8-2 and be the number 2 seed. You see Hattiesburg sitting at that number 3 spot. I feel like they're pretty comfortable there at the 3 spot. I think Macomb's going to be 4, and we're probably going to have Meridian and Scott County 5 and 6. I think that's going to hold, folks. I really do think that's going to hold for the tournament. And just to let you know how the MSAHA tournament is run, is how they do it. If it's 6 teams or less, like in this situation, it gets broken up into different pools. So how it starts off, you'll have the 1 seed take on the 6, the 2 take on the 5, and the 3 take on the 4. The winners go into the winners pool, the losers go into the losers pool, and then they play round robin, and the team that wins the most or wins the tiebreaker is the champion. And so that's how that works. And so what we're probably going to see is a Laurel Scott County, a Muddy River Meridian, a Hattiesburg Macomb. That's just what it seems like right now. Things can change, and it could be very surprising. It's been an interesting year in the league. We have not seen a whole lot of close games in girls. We just really haven't. Not a whole lot of close games in the girls division. I think the closest game was the Meridian Scott County game, which is 11 points, and then the Laurel Muddy River game the second time, which was 13. Just been a lot of blowouts in the girls division. But now we're looking at the boys' side. This is the league standings that is going to be extremely interesting, folks. Look at that. We've got 3 9-win teams in the league. And you see it's stacked by 1 loss, 2 loss, 3 losses. So PCA is number 1. Then you got Hattiesburg number 2, Muddy River number 3. Now, I want to tell you how this is going here. We see that PCA is number 1. So PCA and Muddy River have a tiebreaker going on here. PCA has the tiebreaker over Muddy River if they have the exact same record. Okay? So the reason why is because Muddy River beat PCA by 13 and PCA beat Muddy River by 18. So PCA has the tiebreaker over Muddy River. As far as PCA and Hattiesburg is concerned, is yet to be seen. We have not seen their second game, but PCA has beaten Hattiesburg. Hattiesburg and Muddy River owns the tiebreaker over Hattiesburg. So if Hattiesburg and Muddy River finish the season with the same record in conference, Muddy River is going to have the seeding over Hattiesburg because the counselors beat the Forerunners by 18, while Hattiesburg beat Muddy River by 5. So that would go in the counselor's direction. So if Hattiesburg loses to PCA in their second meeting and finish with 3 losses and the counselors win out, the counselors are going to be the number 2 seed. Now, I will say this. How much does that matter? Probably none at all. Okay, I got to say. It probably doesn't matter, not a bit, because being the 2 seed, being the 3 seed, I guess you play a different opponent 7 or 6, but the league this year is so hotly contested. Whatever your first round matchup's going to be, you're probably going to be playing a pretty competitive. You're probably going to be playing a pretty competitive situation. Also got news today that Tupelo is going to be able to participate in the MSAHA tournament. We're very excited about seeing that. And Tupelo, we have seen from what they have done, they haven't played a conference game in a long time, but they are playing this upcoming week, so we're excited about that. But what we've seen from Tupelo as far as their scores are concerned, they're going to be able to compete. So we know that it's going to be a tough first-round matchup no matter how you slice it. And this goes for the number 1 seed as well, which seems like it'll be PCA at the moment. Whoever the 8 seed is, it's going to be tough for the number 1 seed. So we know that already. And so it should be extremely interesting there. Okay, after that, we do see at the 4 seed, we see the Jackson Victors with a 6-5 conference record. Don't think the Victors are going to be able to crack into the top 3, but I will tell you this, they're not going to be an easy out in the tournament. They're going to be a tough team to face off with. They're a very, very solid team. And so 6-5 conference record for them. We see Tupelo at 2-2. They just haven't played in a long time, so they haven't played as many league games as the other ones. Then we do see Meridian at 5-6 after taking the tough loss to Laurel. Now they're about to play Muddy River on Friday, so we'll see how that goes. Laurel 3-9 in conference after getting that win over Meridian. And Laurel's in a position where they're not going to be finished very high up at all. They've got 9 losses. But getting tightened up for the tournament, they might be able to make some noise. And I'm so excited about this tournament, folks. This tournament is going to be awesome. This tournament is going to be awesome, I think. I think it's going to be very entertaining every single game. So it's good. This is going to be a good one. Probably the best one we've ever seen, if we're just being straight up. We see Macomb 2-8 at number 8, and then Scott County rounding it out at 0-9. Those are the standings at the moment for girls and boys. We appreciate you joining us. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button to the TSJW Network YouTube channel. Let's move on to next week's games, okay? So we do see on Friday night, we've alluded to this multiple times, we see Meridian taking on the Muddy River Counselors. So the Flyers and the Counselors, starting off with girls, Counselors favorites to win this game. Okay, last time the two teams played, the Counselors won 53-12. Meridian coming off a game where they only mustered up 5 points, so they're going to want to do better. They're going to be motivated to play better. Another thing about Meridian, though, they are an athletic team. They can play. They've got some size to them as well. They're trying to work those basketball skills and continue to get better, and so we'll see how they do there against the Counselors. But looking on the boys' side, this will be a good one, folks. I just expect it to be a good one. We've seen the Counselors. They've been playing. I mean, listen, the last game they played well against Macomb. Meridian took a loss to Laurel. So right now it looks better for the Counselors. But look, man, last time these two teams played, we saw it. It was very early in the season, but we saw it. 77-74 was the score. And the Counselors came from behind to win the game in Hickory. And so, also, this game won't be at B Hall. It will be actually at the other gym on Hines' campus. So, not even really the same type of home court advantage for the Counselors. So, it'll be an interesting situation here for the Counselors, but they will be hosting, of course, the Meridian Flyers. So, in that game, Laurel will be on Counselors TV right here on the TSJW Network YouTube channel. And then we see on Saturday, PCA taking on Meridian. So PCA will make the trip out to Hickory to take on the Meridian Flyers. Meridian, they'll have just played the Counselors the night before. So that'll be tough for Meridian to play that back-to-back. I mean, play two of the top teams in the league back-to-back like that. But they will be hosting PCA. The thing is that, hey, look, the Flyers, they shoot very well there in Hickory. But they've lost some games at home as well. So that'll be something to look out for. But the thing about Meridian, they are full of surprises. Sometimes they drop games that you think they should win, but sometimes they win games that you don't expect them to win. Like beating the Victors without having Cooper Franklin playing. That was a shocker. And they were able to get that done. So don't ever overlook this Flyers team and what they can do. And really, if you're the Flyers, very similarly to what I said about Laurel, you're not in a position where you're going to get a very good seeding. So you just need to get tight for that tournament. That's when you want to do well. You want to do well down in Summit at that tournament. And another thing about the seeding as well is that it does matter because you can get a more favorable matchup if you're a higher seed. That's for sure. But you don't even get home court advantage. So it's not like it's like a straight up playoff where you're hosting a game. So it's you take it with a grain of salt on the seeding. So, but it will be Meridian hosting PCA on Saturday. Then we also see on Saturday, Tupelo's taking the floor again in the conference. And I know they've been playing games, but they're taking the floor again in the MSCHA, and they're taking on the Laurel Nighthawks. Nighthawks will be hosting this ball game. The first time these two teams played, that's one of Tupelo's wins. They're 2-2 in conference. They beat Laurel earlier in the year at home, and now they head to the road against Laurel. They're going to be playing against a much-improved Laurel team. We'll see if Tupelo's improved to the same level, and we'll have to see what happens there. That will be hosted by the Nighthawks. And then finally, on Monday, we see the Jackson Victors taking on the Hattiesburg Forerunners. And we will see that down in Hattiesburg as the Forerunners will be hosting the Victors. Now, we saw an overtime matchup in Byram, a win that was pulled out for the Forerunners in OT. And on the Victors side, they want to get another conference win before it's all said and done. They really want that. And so I expect that the Victors are going to come very, very interested in winning this ballgame. I think they're going to be very ready to go. And then on Tuesday, okay, I don't know if I have the graphic up for this one, but on Tuesday we will see the Muddy River Counselors take on the Scott County Flames. And that will be at B Hall. That will be the final home game of the season for the Counselors. They'll take on Scott County. They're favorites in girls and in boys. They'll be ready to play in that ball game. Scott County, coming through the final stretch of the season. And so that will be on that Tuesday. I do want to remind you about our sponsor, which is Take One Media, the official marketing agency of the TSJW Network. That is Take One Media. If you are trying to scale a business, if you're an entrepreneur, business owner, you're trying to scale your business, you should definitely give them a call. You should hit the link, takeonemedia.com/TSJW, takeonemedia.com/TSJW. Folks, we appreciate you joining us here for the MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show. Again, we're back on schedule. Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. We'll be bringing it to you right here on the TSJW Network of Laurel. We're going to try to bring you a lot of good content here in the next few weeks leading up to the championship tournament. We're working on getting some sponsors for our tournament broadcast. We were very excited about how the broadcast turned out last year with the multiple camera angles and all the like, and we're excited about doing that again this year. If you know of someone who has a business and might want to sponsor on our streams of the tournament, we get pretty good viewership on it. It's pretty good, and you guys really watch and share very well, and I appreciate you guys for watching. But hey, look, if you have a business or you know somebody who has a business, get them to contact me. That would be tsjwnetwork@gmail.com, tsjwnetwork@gmail.com for an inquiry on sponsorship. So definitely let me know about that as well. But folks, we appreciate you joining us. That's Nettie Williams on production here today, and so I always appreciate her, of course. And I am your host, Trellis Williams, and until next week, we out.